This is Fantasy Football Till Death.
Yo, my friendly, good-looking friends. It is Saturday, August 16th, 2025, and we are back with another episode of the FFtilD podcast.
Let's go.
Version 18 of our league. I'm joined alongside, as always, by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Sam Singer.
Hello, gentlemen.
A newly crowned 35-year-old. That's all? 35, I think, honestly, you look better now than you did a few days ago.
Well,
if that matters, if that means anything.
I appreciate that.
I saw you today on the stairs.
Low bar.
And no, high bar, dude. High bar. You just need to get back to the LA haircut, I think, and then you'll be leaps and bounds ahead of where you were 10 years ago. I know the version of you 10 years ago couldn't hit stairs like you did today.
That's true. That's true.
And that's really all that matters as a 35-year-old, right?
That's what you got to hang your hat on. Yeah, because there's not much else to hang your hat on.
3 sets, no breaks. All gas, no brakes for Sam on the
all
stairs
gas,
today.
no
Let's
brakes.
clap it up. Let's clap it up. Clap it up. Yeah, golf clap for Sam today on the stairs. I think we got a good episode. Quickly, Sam, before we jump into it, I didn't tell you when you first came over, but Mr. Frank the Tank, my praying mantis, Fred.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It was tough.
Did he go somewhere else or did he go?
Well, I'll tell you what. Hadn't seen him for 2 days as of earlier today by about an hour. Thought he was done, dusted, never to be seen again. I thought he was moving on to greener pastures, potentially finding a mate, as one does. And I walked out today and I saw him in a different location, just sitting there on a flower
you're
from the grave, dude.
You're getting teary-eyed here.
It was emotional, man. It was emotional because Fred means a lot to our family.
Wait, you saw him sitting on a flower?
Yes, right next to his kumquat tree.
Alive?
Alive.
Oh.
He's alive. Sorry.
Oh, so he's here.
I was setting you up there that he was dead.
Oh my God.
But he was gone for 2 days.
He was on his journey.
Continues to be an absolute medical mystery.
Yeah.
Fred the praying mantis.
Oh my gosh. My
He's
heart
there.
was pounding.
You could probably see
here.
him sitting on one of those Cosmo flowers.
Oh, thank goodness Fred is still here.
It's a good omen. It's a good omen for things to come. Hopefully for this podcast episode.
I literally had a dream about Fred. You just reminded me of that.
Was it Fred or Frank in the dream?
It was Fred.
Really?
Yeah. And he was like eating things.
He was praying mantis.
Yeah, he was being a praying mantis. You just reminded me of that. Just like a random dream of Fred. It was like, yeah, there's Fred.
So what? Was the dream you just were walking and you just saw a praying mantis? And
do you ever have dreams that are like just snapshots of things and it's like I don't know
no context or anything?
No context. I don't know what I was doing in my dream, and then all of a sudden I looked over and I saw Fred.
I love that he's made that much of an impression on you.
He's integrated himself into all of our minds.
Dude, I'm happy. It's just one for the little guys to have him come back. We were starting to mourn him collectively. We were on the way back from the stairs today. Jess and I were talking very in a mournful way about Fred. And anyways, I digress. No one wants to know about my praying mantis.
I really thought you were going a different direction with that.
He's back. I set you up. I set you up. It worked out perfectly. Wow. But in not so happier news, we've decided that this is our last episode of the podcast. It's been a good time. But in light of recent events, I think that maybe we just should take some time to step away. I've done some reflecting on my actions from the last episode, and I think it would just be better for the entire league if, we stopped it.
Yeah, I think it's bringing more negativity to the league, to the friend group, than positivity. I think it's been tough on our families, to be honest. The sort of the hate that has come our direction and really was unexpected. It was really unexpected, to be honest. And I just don't like my ladies to be scared.
Who are we kidding, Sam? Okay, first of all, coming from Mr. Good Cop over there, let's stop there. You can't even get in on the joke, man. Mr. Good Cop.
That's true.
We're kidding, but it was a little bit of controversy from last week's episode. So Pull up the script, please, for me. I'd like to, just make a formal announcement here. All right. Everyone, my thoughts, my opinions are just my own. Trust me, it's coming from a good place for content. I mean, no harm. And just opinion based. I try to be as impartial as I can, but let it be known that Hunter and I, we hashed it out. We had a great conversation, totally see where he was coming from. I let him know where I was coming from. We found a good place. And now we're back, ready to highlight later in the show none other than his division.
Perfect timing.
So worked out. But yes, just know, guys, no offense. It's just meant to be whatever. Just meant to be fun, right?
We're just having fun. Yeah. This isn't supposed to be serious.
Just having fun. Although, on a playful but serious note, the Lost in Space. Is it Lost in Space? Did I mess it up?
I actually don't know.
I don't want to misquote this.
The new podcast.
The new
League podcast.
A solo podcast venture by Kendall Cook. Did you know you knew about this?
Yeah, Ken told me about it. Said he was gonna, spin something up, and he put a lot of good hard work into that. Did you listen to it?
I did. Yeah, I did. I did listen to it. And that's why I said, on a more serious note, I think Kendall went hard in the paint. It was a very locked in podcast. There was a lot of organization, structure.
Well-researched.
Yeah.
Good preparation for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. I told Ken, it's like, you were just listening to a fantasy expert go line by line, team by team, take by take. And much different than us just bantering around about, whatever we can think of Fred in the backyard.
Fred. I actually really appreciate the fantasy dive of that element. Cause we have our jokes, our Joshes, we talk some fantasy, but it was a real good, thick fantasy dive. And, I think I'm really excited to hear the next episode and see how it evolves.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's perfect for Kendall, right? Like, I think it's almost like a therapy session for fantasy football, right? Yeah. Like, there's so much pent up fantasy that I think is inside Kendall, especially right now. And, researching and spreadsheets and sending out content is only so much, but you want to talk about it. You want to chop it up. You want to get into the nitty gritty. I can imagine that felt good as a release to actually have that sort of like conversation with someone back and forth
and put it out there
and put it out there. So yeah, I appreciated that. And like I said, lots of insight. It's definitely taking a way more fantasy centric approach, which I think is awesome. And there's no one better suited than Kendall to put all that involvement to great use to
absolutely. I made Hannah and Scarlett watch it in Joshua Tree on Tuesday. They loved it as well. So good pacing, interesting segments. I really like the segments. And it was just really clear that they were both really well prepared. So I was like, oh man, that's what it's like to do a podcast prepared.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Maybe, the self-deprecating jokes are okay when it's about just you, but don't
drag you into this.
Don't drag me into this now.
Well, to be clear, I show up blank-minded and then I hit record and then we put it out to the league every week.
That's not totally true, but it's different, it's right? Close. Don't use it as an object of comparison. All right.
Okay.
There's an organic, fluid nature to what we're doing. That's very different than that. Doesn't mean that it's.
That's true.
Hey,
that's true.
I know you're 35 and there's a lot of things on the mind dragging you down. Don't let the content of this podcast be one of them. All right.
I'm proud of this pod.
All right. Pause. Let's talk off. No, shout out Kendall. That was great. And shout out Graham. Great first guest.
Yeah, really great.
Came in locked in.
Who's on next? I'm stoked.
We'll see.
Who's up next?
Yeah, we'll see.
And when's the next one drop, Ken? We're really pumped.
I think it's a little bit of a mysterious thing, right?
Yeah,
that was part of it. I didn't know. Honestly, when it dropped, I was like, oh shoot, was I not paying attention to the schedule release? I was like caught off guard. Like, is this something I should have been knowing about?
Yeah.
And then I think it was a
surprise, right?
It was an absolute surprise. Yeah. But yeah, shout out Graham. Did a great job. I'm glad I'm glad I'm not in those guys' division. Man, those guys are locked.
Locked in.
That was more fantasy research listening to that podcast than I've done yet. So
it was. I know there are names that I'd never heard before and positions in on the roster I'd never thought about before. So it was great. Absolutely great.
Also great. The drop earlier this AM via Kendall was more on the content release. Yeah. It was on the schedule release. We had a think piece by Griffin Hunter and another mini deep dive by Kendall. I think first, what were your thoughts on the Griffin Hunter piece? Because I absolutely loved it. I was like sitting there. I felt like I was like in the halls of Harrenhal. Yeah. Just looking at my once great castle that's burned to the crisp, just dying for it to be reborn. What are your thoughts?
I loved it. Hunter's hungry. Hunter is hungry, but I loved him talking about peeking in other people's halls and seeing maybe their food's dwindling a little bit too. Just like that little reminder. I mean, it kind of fits with the piece that you dropped a few weeks ago. You know, most people lose. Most people, you lose more than you win. And Hunter, really well written, really entertaining to read. And man, I hope you get some food on your plate this year.
I was so locked into it. It was like it was early AM. I don't know. Beckham was up all night per usual. I was just like had crawled out from his last wake and just rolled over to my side, opened my phone. It was the drop from Kendall. Opened it up, Famine. And it made me, I felt parched. I was like parched, not for Griffin, but for myself, and this is not too far removed from some of those halls being lit and food on the table. But like you said, I mean, Graham is the only one, he's the only one now that's been like a fatted calf now for
those
a couple
plates
of years.
Are full.
They're very full. The rest of us, doesn't matter what you've done lately. And I would tell anyone this, whether you've had a run of success, like unless you're the returning champ, you're fired up. Like you want it back. Like you feel like you're famished, right? Oh, yeah. Like unless you are that returning champ, all the rest of us, no matter if you haven't won in 15 years or 2 years or 8 years, I think it feels similar.
Oh, absolutely. And even if you are the returning champ, you want to do it again. We all see that mark, that spring set. And everyone's gunning for it. Graham's got a shot this year.
3-peat would be legendary. But yeah, kudos to Hunter. That was really fun. Got me fired up.
Really great read. And good job, Hunter.
Yeah, all those themes are very much central.
Oh yeah,
day to day, and it was great. I loved it. Just the quiet little And I maybe there were some references to specific people, but yeah, you might have some lights that are a little bit brighter than mine, but they're still dimming. I know that there's still people on the outskirts of your village that are going hungry. Like you can't live on that residual success forever. So, I love that component of it.
Real good.
Kendall also dropped, and man, Kendall, I know you're doing this because you have a purpose behind it, but I feel like you're making enemies for me here. He dropped a player profile today. It was on my 2024, basically activity level or transactional overview. And I know you're just trying to encourage people to be as active as possible, but it's really coming at my expense here, Ken. Just so you know, it's okay. It's okay, but I'm hoping it doesn't create some sort of A, embargo, or B, just any sort of animosity towards me in general. Have it be known, this is all on Kendall's volition here, dropping this stuff. I've never once said anything to Kendall about mentioning my name. So
keep my name. What are your thoughts on, there's a few things to take out of here. First of all, obviously it's sort of a trade deep dive, but just using last season, which really you made 2 trades of consequence last season. But I thought it was interesting his little
context is, like I said last week, context really does matter. If I don't know where you're going with that, but I just have to stop because of consequence that changes based on the nuance of a trade or the context of it. Right. So in my mind, every trade had some value to me, whether that was just for 1 week, whether that was for 3 weeks down the road, for a spot start, whether I was to potentially have, like the Algier one was handcuffed.
Oh, what? Yeah, I misread it. There's 3 trades that I'm not like you sent Ricky Parcell, Jalen Warren, Tyler Algier, Jalen Wright.
So I spot started Jalen Warren a couple of times down the road for buys that I knew I had coming up with both Bucky and Bijan. At the time, I didn't have running back depth because I made that big trade with you. So I was, like I said, you do it. I'm not preaching.
It's a legit trade. I'm talking about trades that, like, when you think back, like Jamar got moved, Mixon.
Of note. But I do think if you're going to talk about the trade in trading realm in general, macro as well as micro trades are important.
Sure. Yeah.
To plant seeds for down the road, right? Like,
yeah, the ones that I think get people talking.
Yeah.
Obviously some people in the league had opinions about that first trade you made, Mixon, Olave for Bijan. And then our trade, Jamar Chase and shitty Breece Hall, big names, Bucky Irving, that trade ends up being, you trade for Bucky on October 8th. Bucky turns into, a legend, I think. So, hindsight's 2020. That's like a big impactful trade. But what I was going to say is I find it interesting, Ken's focus on number of ads. Ken leading the charge with 119 ads. And there's some back and forth today in the group about, I think Ken's position is you need to average, this sweet spot is 70 moves a season or you're not doing it right. I'm paraphrasing, but those are basically his words. Curious what your thoughts are on that. You were the second most active in terms of just picking people up last year. I think I can see an argument both ways. Luke only made 3 moves last year, but I don't know that he needed to make moves. Like it would have been very hard for Luke to get to 70 moves last year unless he's cycling through with the really good dudes on his bench. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's one right or wrong way to do something. I don't take like a data centric approach. So I'm not digging in like Kendall is and using sort of data to prove points or to make claims. Which obviously if you're using data is king in a lot of ways, so you can't ignore something like that. I think, based on roster composition and where you are and what you're dealing with and what you're navigating, like that obviously is going to be the most important factor, right? I don't think you have to make tons of moves. For certain teams, it makes a ton of sense to make them only when they make sense or when they're required, right? Like I think that's kind of common sense, right? I think there's an underlying strategy as far as like roster composition that would allow you more flexibility at the bottom to sort of, go to and fro with more ads, trying to potentially find some gems, but you don't have to build your team that way. That's, I personally, like when it comes to my activity, I think a lot of it is by just being in a position to have to do it. Right. Yeah. Like I've over the years had some not great drafts where I have guys on my team that I just don't care about. They don't pan out, get hurt or whatever. And so obviously you have flexibility at that point. I don't think everyone has to do it that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of it depends on your draft strategy. If you're going to take big swings and spend a lot of your budget early on and you're going to rely on your ability to find people on the wire, then obviously you're going to make more moves throughout the season. But, Graham, good example of someone that doesn't really do that. And past 2 seasons, it's turned out well for him. Luke has been really competitive for 3 or 4 years now, making essentially no moves. In 2021, I remember everyone was basically out of fab and he had his whole budget left and, dropped like $50 on whoever, right? Like,
yeah.
So yeah. And then, the numbers don't really mean much out of context. Like, Ken, you made 119 moves last year, but how many of those 119 moves were picking up Detroit's 5th string running back and dropping him the next day and then picking up some wide receiver 6 on some other team, So it's,
I think that there is I think there's a baseline sort of like a baseline level of like validity to Kendall's claim. 100%. I mean, my personal play style is active, right? In that way. I don't think that there is a definitive right or wrong way to approach it, as we just said, but I do think there is a lot of validity to what Ken is saying as far as just general behavior, right? And play style. I think like over time, if you are more active, it probably will result in more success than being inactive, right? Over the course of time.
Oh, for sure.
Just as a general managerial behavior.
Yeah. If you're not going to be active, you better crush your draft and have solid depth and good luck, basically.
100%. Like if you're fortunate enough to be in a position to not really ever have to make a move, that's a rarity, right? So yeah, I don't think really any right or wrong way to do it. I think to Ken's point, just being active in the ways that you can. Obviously he highlighted some things at the bottom of, I don't know, that analysis that
his 5 things.
Yeah, I think are important. Minus the don't do these with Thomas.
Yeah, 5 things. Trade with Brennan before he inevitably does is number 1. Color up for elite players. I love that. Assuming you've got the depth. This is something that Luke and Dom could feast on. Looking at their roster over the last couple of years. Get the best player in the deal. Makes perfect sense. And then add players off free agency. Okay, we just talked about that. Swing for the fences with your fab. This is one, to be honest, that I've struggled with over the last couple of years. Swinging for the fences with fab. Much like my draft strategy, is just hard for me to spend money. And in week 2 or 3, dropping $70 for whoever this year's Elijah Mitchell is going to be is something that I find it hard to bring myself to do. Yeah. Just because mostly I don't want to feel like an idiot when I miss.
Yeah.
But obviously it's worked out really well for when it hits, it hits. I mean, it's essentially you're just getting a stud expensive person for basically no consequence, right?
Yeah.
When you miss though, last year I think I was like, fuck it, I really need some receiver. I'm going all in. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's the guy I'm planting my flag on. Dropped I think 67 on him, and he got injured the next day and didn't really play the rest of the season. So
yeah, but you're kind of playing with house money,
Yeah.
And I think this dynamic has a direct sort of correlation to the moves, right? And so my personal play style with the fab is like swing for the fences. It doesn't have to be the $78 Wicks, but it could be, hey, there's a guy that I think is going to go for 10 to 15 and I'm going to drop 30 on him. Right. Like,
yeah,
that's been my general approach, obviously to each his own, but like, if I really want someone, I'm going to make a concerted effort to pay more than maybe even close to what I think the average person will do just to get them. Right. Like, because those players kind of are a dime a dozen. And the way that I think of it, again, to each their own with this sort of thing, hanging on to your fab, it's not just risky in the moment, but it's actually risky later on as well. Because there's no guarantee that you'll be able to out fab Luke with $100 on whatever player you've been saving it for anyways, right? So it's a risk both ways. And so my personal belief is jump on things, especially early on in the season, that have a longer leeway to pay out, the longer window to get more from it, rather than, trying to hope that you can outmuscle 1 or 2 or 3 other managers that have the same mentality as you later
down
on,
the stretch.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's personally how I approach it. You're going to swing and miss for sure. But if you it doesn't have to be the huge ones, David Njoku, I bid 11 for, got him last year, top 5 tight end. It doesn't have to be $70. Just something you think is going to be more than the next person next to you. And then if you get them and they don't work out, then whatever.
Yeah. And fantasy football is so different than real life. If you want someone, overpay and guarantee you get that person, and you're going to feel better having that person on your roster than trying to get a deal on that person and hoping that no one else noticed him. And honestly, our league is just, everyone's too active for you to steal someone on the waivers. So you're going to have to pay at least market value. So that's one of my mantras, as well as spending $100 on my first pick this year in the draft. So
you won't, Sam.
I won't.
There's no chance. I mean, what are the odds that you spend 70 or more on a guy?
Well,
5?
I should do it because the last time I won a championship, I spent, I think, 72 on Alvin Kamara and let the pieces fall where they fell.
What are the chances? Give me a percentage, the odds that you'll spend more than 70 on a player.
70 plus this year, 35%.
Really?
Yeah.
So that would be Jamar, Bijan.
Cortland Sutton.
Not to give too much away here.
No, so I don't mind. Not like it's gonna, keep prices down. I think Jamar is a 70 plus guy this season. I think Bijan's a 70 plus guy this season.
Saquon? You're afraid of Saquon?
I'm not spending 70.
So
I think Saquon could be a 70 plus, right?
Bijan or Jamar?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, to be honest.
I'm curious to see where Bijan goes. That's the guy where I'm like, Jamar.
67 is the number I have in my head for Bijan.
I think that's probably right around there, between 65 and
I just don't think in year one with dropping a bench spot that we're going to see some drastic change in across the average behavior of people in the draft.
Yeah.
I don't think I think people are still going to shell out. There's people that just let's get 3 expensive dudes on my team and whatever it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's the roster comp that's going to define the budget, but I would think that it's just a general trend of cost evaluation.
What, to spend less?
To spend less. I think that has been the general trend the last few years.
Over time? Spend less over time?
Spend less over time. I think it's been going in that direction. Last year, who were the top guys? Bijan, CMC.
Bijan was high 60s, CMC mid 60s.
Someone hit 70, CD?
CD was like
CD the
72.
most expensive?
I can pull it up real quick.
So if you're looking at like sort of the pre-draft rankings, I think it was like CD, Brees, Bijan. Most often CD and Brees, I think, were the most common 1-2 as far as like pre-ranking ADPs. Bijan was like, justifiable 1, 2, 3 as well. I got Brees for 63 last year, I'm pretty sure. And I think Bijan
61.
Who?
Brees.
Oh, I got Brees for 61. Okay. Yep. So he was like a consensus top 1-2 pick last year, getting him for 61.
Yep.
You would think that things will potentially continue. Although obviously Jamar is like thought of in a lot higher light than Brees was.
What Jamar brings with him that's different than what CD brought with him last year and Brees brought with them last year is that Jamar has just like a track record now. Like CD had one super good year. Brees had like one really good year and then got injured and like had a really good finish to a year.
He had the trajectory. That was just assuming he was going to take another leap.
Yeah. So last year, CD 70, most expensive, Jay. CMC 69, and then we hit the low 60s with Tyreek, Bijan, Amon-Ra, Brees, and Justin Jefferson, and that's it. Everyone was 55 or below. Jamar Chase 55 last year. Steal of the draft, Saquon 46.
Yeah.
So,
do you think that has more to do with the nomination order or more to do with just general spending trends?
I think it depends because I think there's dudes in our league who have their guys.
Yeah.
And they're going to get that guy. I know Evan and Graham are both kind of like that. I've gone head to head with Evan 2 or 3 years ago on Scary Terry towards the end of the draft. And we were both just, I think 37 is what I ended up getting, the wide receiver 34 that year or something like that. But I think it just depends. I think we have some spenders. I think people like to spend. Do. I think, Brendan, especially this year, we're all going to be together, hyping each other up in person in real life.
I'm so
maybe
excited.
some drinks flowing. I think some things can get nutty. I mean, the excitement in the moment,
I'm so curious to see not just like the overall spending patterns, but just who goes where, right? Like I was talking to Graham about this the other day. Just like, I think based on where people are nominated, like if it's a run of wide receivers right off the bat, does that mean that if we start with Jamar, like say someone nominates Jamar first, just be that dude, and he goes for 76, like for fun, if someone goes CD right after him, does that mean that people are like, raised? Oh gosh, and they go, Yeah. Oh gosh, let's reset the sort of value meter. Or does that mean, CD's now 68? You know, like I'm curious to see how that happens. Or with like, if the running backs go first, if it's Bijan and Saquon, if they're way up there, and then a run of wide receivers, and then running backs come back and are like 35. Like there's so many different, I wish I knew.
I think with our group, especially with 8 people or 9 managers potentially drafting in person, that it's more permission to spend big. If someone drops 75 plus on Jamar, I think it raises the ceiling for other dudes. I think you could see people in that first round ADP going definitely 65 and above. I don't know. Man. That's just what I think. Last year felt pretty tame. I mean, we've had Jay's dropped 80 plus on dudes before. Like,
I have too.
Yeah. You're right. It has been a while, but even 2021, 2022, we had people nutty. I mean, people in the 70s. Justin Herbert went for like 38 one year. Like,
that was a one-off. Yeah. No, 70s was commonplace. I feel like 70s is getting retired though. I think there's a chance that Jamar, maybe Bijan, maybe low 70s Bijan are the only two that go 70s. I mean, Jamar for sure 70s, unless everyone gets gun shy randomly because they all have a strategy of like, I'm not spending over 50 on a player. But I think those two might be the only two that go 70s.
Those are only 2 players that I would be comfortable if I got the edge spending more than $70 on. The value is just not there.
Curious to see how it goes. And we are 14 days away from the draft?
Exactly 14 days from today, we shall all be this excitement, this preseason blank slate, the wonder and awe of the road ahead will be crushed. And some of us will be stoked and others will be wishing that the draft was just a practice round and we could do it again. And then the season starts.
Kendall, in 14 days and 7 hours, make a mental note. Do not trade Jordan Mason for Kamani Vidal. All right. Just start your season off at least with that in mind. All right. Because the draft is in 14 days and 6 hours. So 14 days and 7 hours. Set a reminder.
Can you imagine if Ken kept Jordan Mason last year?
No.
This might be a whole different story. That 0-7 start, because he had I can't even remember who he was starting at running back last year, but it was like late round guys for a long time.
Tajay. Tank, maybe.
He had Tank for a while.
Tank and Tajay, I think. Honestly, I forget, but
he was getting like 8 points out of his running back.
Saved Casey. But yeah, excited for the draft. Can't wait. But I want to, speaking of Casey, I think it's a good transition now to move ourselves over to the only unnamed division at this point, I believe.
Yeah.
Am I correct there?
Casey proposed a name, but I was unclear. I think if that was just off the cuff, or if
I think that was discussed. Off the cuff. I think he was thought what I was saying was a joke. But we got Set It and Forget It. We have Singing the Bonnie Blues, and then Division 3, Griffin, Casey, Brendan, and Kendall. Thus far, unnamed. Excited to see what they cook up. I wonder what that's like. That little brain trust. They're gonna have like a little 4-man text group. Right. So
I would assume so. Yeah.
I wish I was a fly on the wall in the little brainstorming session.
With the ideas. Do you have any ideas for their division name? I'm putting you on the spot here. Man.
No, I have not thought about it.
Feast or Famine.
That's good. Yeah. I like that. That
could work.
Have you been thinking about that?
No, that just came to me.
You knew that. And so you asked me to make me sound dumb, and then you could just rattle that right off.
That was the plan.
Good cop, done cop now.
That was
good cop, smart cop,
my
dumb
mission.
Cop.
My mission is to destroy you.
That's great. Feast and Famine. Yeah, make note, guys. That's actually a really good one. But today's profile in our ongoing divisional preview series is this interesting, bad-mouthing, no love lost division that is those four
Rough
spunky
Riders.
Gentlemen.
Spunky gentlemen.
So do you remember who created that division? Was it Kendall?
I think it was Casey.
Has Casey been like one of those guys like 2 times now or 3?
I think so. He picked last year for sure. I think it was Casey. Yeah.
So as you see that division getting formed and then finalized, What are your initial thoughts when you just see that foursome, those four guys in the same division?
It's great that we've got Ken and Hunter in the same division again. Feast or famine, the reason why I sort of think of feast or famine is like, you think of Casey's team comp, Brendan, like teams that can go off, teams that can be not great because of injuries or whatever. Managers that can go off, managers that can be unpredictable. Brendan just tearing his team apart after week 1 last year as being an example of that. And then, besides the no love lost between Hunter and Ken, just some other storylines of, Hunter trying to find his way back to the playoffs. Ken trying to, I think, fully summit the mountain that he's been climbing for the last 3 seasons or so. And Casey trying to not spend $1,500 on draft aids,
Yeah, there's some interesting storylines. I think it's storylines aplenty, right? I think the banter between these four gets really funny, gets all over the place. I think interestingly enough, I think all of them have had banter amongst each other in some way, some form, right? I think we had the meme gate last year between Brendan and Hunter, which was hilarious.
The meme gate. I forgot about that.
Meme gate. Yeah, I know. Casey and them chirped it up a little bit. Everyone comes at Ken to some degree, right? At some point, based on the back and forth there, Ken being no stranger to expressing his opinion and going hard in the way he backs it up. Really, none of them are strangers to that. So I'm excited to see how it plays out week in and week out. We got Kendall and Hunter lined up for that divisional rivalry game week 1. Excited to see that. But as far as player spotlights, I think we start with Casey. I'm looking at him. He was the top of his division last year. And this is going to mark year, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This will be his 5th season. So 2021 was his first year.
2022 was his first year. So this will be his fourth season. Yeah.
4th season.
No.
He started in
2021. 2021 was his first season. Yes.
Okay.
2021 was Casey's first season. Still relatively fresh to the league, especially when you look at it under the microscope of, we're in year 18 here. I think that plays into Casey's sort of storyline, establishing himself as that like seasoned fantasy player. There's not a ton of insight for a lot of the players that have been playing for an extended period of time to go off of it with him. Hence, I think Jason's response in the punishment, right? I think that was more arbitrary than anything else. So excited to see kind of what Casey brings to the table this year as far as in-season action, drafting, right? So we've seen a consistent trend with Casey. I think every season he's played, right? I don't remember exactly his first year's draft, but attacking the draft hard, getting 2 or 3 heavy hitters, and then investing in some kind of lottery picks, which half the time I think have paid off down the road. So excited to see that. But as far as Casey's player profile, his history, starting 2019, NA, obviously not there yet. 2020, not in the league as well. So, and remember, as we profile these players, it is post-auction era. Casey's first season, yikes. 2021, enters the league a hero as a body. Team not so heroic. They go 4-10. Casey rebounds the next year though, 2022. Pretty scary team. Goes 9-5 and a playoff berth. 2023, 7-7, misses the playoffs, but rebounds in 2024. Oft injured, hence his double knee brace yourself name, double entendre there. Wins a very funky division at 7-7 and mows into the playoffs with a pretty scary 7-7 team, all things considered. So
pretty scary. Ask Evan about those quarterfinals. That scary team drop. Casey's team 170 points in the quarterfinals last year.
Casey was a team last year, and I think we mentioned this. I think you mentioned this where you're like, you're looking at the schedule ahead of time to see who you're playing, and you're like, all right, I hope this guy's still injured, right? Like, oh, so-and-so has a 6-week injury timeline. Oh, when am I playing Casey? good. I'm playing him during that injury timeline, right? Like it was very much that last year. You're looking at buys. But yeah, makes the playoffs, division winner. Obviously there's things you can't control. Curious to see if he changes it up at all. What do you think when you look at Casey going into this season would help him sort of put him over the top with these division mates, or anything that you think maybe he can change or add to?
So I think if you look at Casey's 4 years in the league, he's made the playoffs 50% of the time and had a competitive team 50% of the time, which is solid. That's like, it's a small sample size, but that's a better track record than a lot of guys in the league. I think his draft strategy has worked for him, as long as you're willing to accept like feast or famine. The only thing that I would say if I were Casey and I were going to employ the same strategy is just stay away from the expensive dudes that have injury histories. Because, last year he drafted CMC, got super lucky that Ken was open to trading Jordan Mason for Kamani Vidal. Puka, sick wide receiver, never played a full season.
Well, he was also hurt, wasn't he, going into the season?
CMC?
No, Puka.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like a shoulder thing?
Puka
that was like
hurt.
during
CMC
the offseason?
was hurt. Casey drafted Debo. Debo had a up and down season, but he was hurt. David Montgomery, who's usually a beast, got hurt. But, so if you're going to draft team glass and it's going to be like expensive dudes, that I would just say draft the people that, and obviously injuries are totally random. We never know what's going to happen, but spend the money on dudes that don't have lengthy injury histories. And I think you give yourself a better shot. But if I were Casey and I had the balls to just drop all that money in the draft, I wouldn't change my strategy because, 50% of the time it's worked pretty well for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to see, as far as like Casey potentially mixing it up, just that activity level, right? So if we're going to look at, I think over the past 4 seasons for him, haven't seen super active in the trading scene, and then I guess in the waiver scene as well. So curious to see if that changes. The hero approach is crazy. The teams are always incredibly scary. So I don't know. I honestly, there's not really much more to say on it. Like he's, like you said, it's feast or famine. Like he's going all in or folding. And I'm not him. I don't know what kind of offers he's getting. I don't know if he's potentially trying to offload a guy that's hurt for some value, or if he's just riding it out. I think last season he rode it out big time with the guys he had, and he had some good fill-ins, 100%, especially David Montgomery. He was a hot commodity, especially before he got hurt. But definitely like rode it out and was the beneficiary of a division that was kind of losing at the same time as he was losing. And it worked out, being able to get into the playoffs and make it there with some guys maybe, more available than they were early in the season, but that's not always going to work out for you that way. But
he did end up in November finally moving off of the bell of the ball, David Montgomery. And I think a really great trade. He upgraded. He ended up with James Cook.
Yeah.
So I forget who he shipped, but he got James Cook back. He also made a move for Garrett Wilson right before Garrett Wilson caught fire. So he did make a good few timely moves that
that's true. I forgot about the Garrett Wilson.
He traded with Ben and I don't have it in front of me. I don't remember who he traded, but he ended up with Rico Dowdle, Garrett Wilson, James Cook. So he did what he had to do to bolster the roster down the stretch and made the push, made the playoffs, dropped 170 in the quarters. He must have been feeling really good about that. Yeah. And unfortunately, the team just kind of flamed out a little bit the next week. But Casey, over the last 4 years, has always had a team that you're like, fuck, I think I'm going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Casey drops 175 on me this week.
I know. Yeah. Year in and year out, you're like, man, I wish I had the courage to do what he just did. Him and Brendan, very similar in that way, as far as how they're drafting, where you're like, I'm not looking forward to playing that team. And I'm hoping it doesn't work out in the best case scenario, because they did exactly what I would have liked to do. But, caution is the better form of valor sometimes. Right. And that's the approach that I think a lot of people take. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't realize, I forgot that Casey had made a couple of those moves. We'll see if he keeps that rolling, see if he can have a clean bill of health. But, we never know. Maybe he changes it up. Maybe he mixes up the approach in the draft. Maybe he doesn't spend big on 2 or 3 guys, and he goes more balanced, and then that results in a whole different Casey approach. We've only seen him act in a certain way based on what he's done historically, and it's been similar. So, I'm curious to see if he evolves with an evolving strategy, or if he sticks with it and then kind of plays it the same. Like I said, no wrong or right way to do things, but it'll be interesting to see.
Let's move on to Brendan, since you just brought him up. Another similar approach in the draft last year. Brendan walked out of there with Jamar Chase, Kyren, Bijan, George Kittle, although George Kittle didn't come at a premium price tag last year, but some sick dudes, I would say. And Anthony Richardson after week 1, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy is going to be QB1. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. So Brennan spent big. He, I would say he had some decent depth. He had Josh Downs on the bench. That's about it, actually. But
and post-draft, Josh Downs is different than like a couple weeks of him being decent during the season.
Halfway through the season, Josh Downs is a little different.
The hindsight's a little different.
Yeah. Obviously, by week 2, Brendan no longer had Bijan on the team, but did have Joe Mixon and Kyren and George Kittle, Olave, Jamar Chase. I know that there's, some opinion about that trade. Was it collusion? Blah, blah, blah. Honestly, when I look at Brendan's week 1 roster versus his week 2 roster, with the hindsight of knowing obviously Joe Mixon was a stud last year, I think it looks better than it did week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is going to be that particular trade is going to be just a defensible or not defensible opinion. It's going to be, I think, black or white based on how you look at it. Right. Obviously I'm the one that did it. So if, I'm going to be talking about it from that lens of, I can see why it's defensible, and especially in the context of his roster and pretty much having no wide receiver depth outside of Jamar and whatever. At that point, things hadn't gone south, right? So obviously hindsight is always going to be 2020. There's things that you can use to argue after week 1 why it's justified. If you are, which Bijan's an absolute stud. I wanted him for a reason. I also got auto drafted Olave. I hated him. I wanted him off the team right away. There's so many factors at play that you can use to judge the trade for one way or the other. But yeah, Brennan's always he is very fluid when it comes to his team and how he can, I think, not just set himself up to win that week, but also I think he just has this mindset of like, all right, potentially it makes me better this week, but it also, maybe I make a trade that gives me another tool, right? Like another asset that I can use down the line, right? And I think, it might have been an overreaction week 1 with the performance of some of those studs where he thinks, okay, I'm shallow in a certain spot. Let me get that 2-for-1. Hopefully they're both good versions of what they are. And then I have more assets to flip potentially to work in the style of play that I like to play it at. Right. So that's always how Brennan's been. But I do want to highlight quickly before we get too far into the Brennan track, just his player profile as we have with most. So starting back from 2019, not the best run for old B there. He goes 2-12 in 2019, 2020. He goes 8-6, misses out on the playoffs via tiebreaker. 2021 was his off year, his hiatus. 2022, he rejoins the fold with Kendall as co-managers. Who knows what that looked like internally, but they go 7-7. B comes back as a solo manager after he just violently kicks Jacked out of the league. Like the guy had no chance. He just took him to the arena, slashed him up. 2023, he comes back with a mighty vengeance, a flurry of those similar types of moves, goes 8-6, actually makes the championship. Falls to Graham that year, then follows it up last year, another 8-6 season, makes the playoffs with another sort of similar approach.
Oh yeah.
He's the last 2 years has become this unconventional very much organic matter, like fluid sort of manager as he looks at his teams, making moves. Some work, some don't. But overall, I mean, 2 playoff appearances, a championship appearance 2 years ago. Can't say that it's not working out for him.
If you're Brendan and you're looking at the last 2 seasons, he stepped away in 2022. He cleared his head, or 2021 cleared his head. 2022, he came back and split duties with Ken. 2023 takes that sole manager role again and hasn't looked back. I mean, if I'm Brendan, 1 out of 2 years I made the playoffs, 2 out of 2 years I made the playoffs. One of those years I went to the championship. I don't know. Do I have incentive to change? It seems to be working. He's been better than me the past 2 years. I wish I made the playoffs the past 2 years and went to the championship one of those years. So
you have to look at it, I think, from the butterfly effect angle, where that's going to be the only motivator to even want to change. Because if you're just looking at it from success and outcomes, all you want to do is make the playoffs in fantasy. So if you're making the playoffs 100% of the time with this play style, right? Why are you motivated to change it? If you're doing a deep dive at the end of the season on how some of those guys you traded ended up, that might, take you down that rabbit hole to say, okay, I've got good intuition when it comes to drafting these guys. Let it play out and see what happens. Then again, who knows? You just don't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's done a deep dive into each individual game. Have he had this player or that player, or kept his roster from the beginning of what would have been a win, what would have been a loss? So that's obviously takes a lot of, takes a lot of work to do that. And if you're just content with, hey, I made the playoffs, and if you make the playoffs, anything can happen. Yeah, I don't really see the incentive to change.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And I mean, okay, Bijan was better than Mixon last year for sure. But he got back Olave, who then he turned into Drake London, who then he turned into someone else. So he was able to build depth that he didn't have, and Mixon was still a freaking stud. So,
and this is what I'll say about assets. And this is something that I don't think is really considered as much as it should be. It's not necessarily like a car dealership when it comes to fantasy football. The second you draft them at a good price, or they have a good pre-ranking ADP. They're not losing their value overnight just by driving them off the lot. So you actually have a lot more wiggle room to use them than you might think, right? So taking a stab at guys with good name value they don't need to be scoring 25 a game in that moment to generate return, right? You just need to find the right buyer for them that believes in their upside, that believes in their potential, that's saying, hey, why was this person wide receiver 11 before the season? You know what I mean? Does that mean 3 weeks it's automatically gone, right? Or
exactly.
Whatever the case may be. So that's what I go back to with having the tools in the tool belt, right? If you're approaching things that way, then you have options, assuming you find the right trade partner.
Absolutely. And every season, they're the dudes that start slow and pick it up after the bye week or after a coordinator change or something. And you can it's that name value. You believe in that name value. You know that person's got the skill set, got the talent, and it's just a few things that have to change. I mean, CD was like that a couple of years ago. Garrett Wilson was like that last year. Even to a certain extent, DJ Moore was like that last year. And they got rid of Shane Waldron, and all of a sudden he started scoring points. So
I like to think that I coached him up a bit.
You did. I mean, I know that DJ is who you actually wanted in our trade, not Jamar. And I threw in Jamar just to spice up the deal.
Yeah. Well, you were pretty mean to DJ.
Well, fuck DJ.
There has to be a certain level of appreciation you have for your guys, right? They're not just chess pieces. They're humans.
I drafted DJ in all of my leagues last year. He was my guy.
Oof. Before we get off Brennan, though, I'm curious. He has been such a topic of conversation, even in this last piece by Kendall. What do you think Brendan thinks when he sees rule number 1 from Kendall on a data sheet saying, be the first person to trade with Brendan? What do you think Brendan's thinking? Do you think he just laughs at that? Do you think he's offended? What do you think is going through Brendan's head?
I think it's probably a little bit of both of those things. I think he's sort of like, Ken, why are you just talking about me? It's worked out for me with what are you talking about? Okay, sure. Yeah, please do trade with me, everyone, because it's taken me to the playoffs 2 years in a row and the championship 1 year in a row. So I can kind of see Brendan reacting to it like just like, you know, a little miffed, a little bit like
it's funny. It's so funny. He's been kind of doing his own thing, not as engaged, I think, as far as like texting or responding to things, but I'm just curious. I'm waiting for it. Eventually it's going to come through. I wonder if he's paying attention to the content
in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want those thoughts to be relayed to Kendall, because rule number one, if you want to be successful, find Brendan and trade with him before I do.
Early and often. Get there before Thomas, or all that's left will be burned thatched roof buildings and emaciated cattle and
all that to say, you trade Bijan, you trade Jamar, it looks bad at the end of the year. That's completely fair criticism to say. Yep. And I'm sure he thinks the same thing. I mean, you're watching that season unfold. You're like, I can't believe I had those guys. So totally fair. And I wonder if Brendan, I mean, the criticism that's received is totally justified.
Oh yeah.
And I know that I look complicit in this, but they were legit in the moment, I think.
It worked out for both you guys.
And you got Jamar. You're the one that traded with Brendan for Jamar.
Yeah, I did.
Good cop.
Let's move on to Kendall Cook.
Kendall Cook, the little lightning bug himself when it comes to this fantasy thing. Who would have known that he would go from Tap King? What is
Tap King, Disco Fever
Part Deux?
Yeah, a name that none of us can pronounce because it was in Mandarin.
Basically a free buy. I would like to get the insight on when things just changed. I don't know. Have we got the inside scoop on when it's not like a light bulb clicking. It's more of just like an interest engaging, right? Where you're just like, I'm actually interested in this and I want to do well. I wonder when exactly that happened and what spurred it on.
My read is that his season co-managing with Brendan kind of ignited it, because
so ignited what? Ignited the obsession that it is now, or
ignited the interest?
I think the interest had started developing before that. I believe so, because I think Kendall's first playoff appearance, Kendall will correct me when I'm inevitably wrong here, but I think it might have been 20.
You know, Ken has a championship appearance.
2018. I know Kendall beat me in the semifinals one year and went to the finals.
He's got,
but I think that year was his first playoffs, and I think he got that taste of success, and I think things shifted after that, and I think that was maybe 2017.
Yeah, it was before the auction era. It was 2017. He lost to Spring with another team named in Mandarin that I can't pronounce. But then had some up and down. So maybe like it planted a seed in 2017, but this is just my read. I have no idea if this is true or not. When he and B co-managed together, they did like a lot of draft prep. They built a strategy together. They drafted a team that struggled out of the gate, but they came on later in the season and they were like scoring tons of points. I think that was the year that in the consolation bracket, he is like the most points scored. And I think that was like, I can do this. Like I can right this ship. And not only can I be competitive, but I can strive to be one of the best in the league.
Yeah. So that would have been 2022.
Yeah.
But if you look at his team starting from 2019, and I didn't even remember this, but 2019 he goes 9-5, makes the playoffs. That's the first auction era team. I remember his team there, and I think it was like a pretty deep team from what I remember. I think he did a value-based approach. But I saw it in his eyes. I saw the fire in his eyes. Even then, 2020 goes 8-6, misses the playoffs. 2021, that's the B year. They go 7-7, miss. But yes, that is the infamous consolation bracket champion. Lives on in history, in the annals of time, that consolation team.
Everyone talks about it.
The next year, though, he was riding that high. I think you're absolutely right, because he comes in like a machine. 2023, that was his best season.
Yeah, got the first round bye.
He goes 11-3, highest scoring team. In fact, set a then record for points scored in a season.
Keenan Allen, I can remember DJ Moore on his team.
It was a very good team.
Justin Fields, I think.
It was a very good team. And as often happens in fantasy, got extinguished by a hotter team. Actually, I think at that time with Graham, but 11-3 nonetheless. That was sort of the pinnacle of the new age Kendall. And then there's the hype video over the summer, and 2024, a slight regression to 4-10.
So since 2019, he's only had one sub 500 season. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. Only
That's
one
impressive.
sub 500 season. He's had a 7-7. But yeah, 9-5, 8-6, 7-7.
That's really impressive.
Well, back-to-back 7-7. Sorry. 2020, 8-6, 2021, 7-7, 2022, joint year with Ken. And then 11-3 and 4-10.
Yeah. So that's impressive. I mean, I think that's a good stretch. Last year, again, just a little unfortunate. I think Hunter said something in the text today, how much is too much essentially, or, and maybe that's sort of the theme of Ken's season last year. Had he only held on to Jordan Mason, what would have changed? Because his team was good. Started 0-7, scored a whole bunch of points, starting about week 8, finished with a pretty high, respectable points scored. So, Ken is a rising star, that's for sure. And, I think someone probably to fear heading into this season certainly seems like by far the most prepared.
Yeah. I mean, I think if just we're being honest with Kendall, and I think he would probably say the same, like obviously when it comes to time, devotion, research, education, examining what's out there, as well as using that to form his own opinions, right? All of that stuff. He is super, super locked in. It's become, one of his main interests and hobbies, which is really cool to see. So in that way, no one's going to compare as far as the time and devotion, right? Like he's got that unlock. I think there's only so much knowledge you can have, right? Before, I don't want to say diminishing returns, but before it's like, okay, what else can you pack your brain with besides just being updated with what's happening with teams and coaching philosophy and offenses and injuries, right? But I think for Kendall, he'd probably admit this. It's like he's his own worst enemy, I would assume, right? Like last year, come in super prepped. I'm sure he's going to be. I can't imagine him being that much more prepped this year than he even was last year, because I think he was super prepped. But I think he just kind of short circuited, like in the moment, right? Like, and I think we all do that. I've done that many times in the draft, but he's, the only person that I think can bring him down is himself at this point, as far as it goes in the strategy realm.
Yeah. Ken and I were actually just talking about this, and he reminded me that last year he drafted with his 1-month-old daughter sleeping on his chest. So that it's tough to get locked in when you're just bracing yourself for this baby to wake up at any point. Another thing, I think he was so prepped last year that he felt that he had to price enforce during the draft, and that led to him drafting dudes that he didn't want to draft in the first place. Yeah. And then I think you just had some carryover after the draft, or he felt maybe he had to scramble and try to make that right.
Yeah, he was on tilt. I think part of it is like, not like an act like you've been there before sort of thing, but the success is still relatively new to Kendall. He's got a reputation now to uphold, right? Like, and so the enforcing thing is just like, just worry about like, just do what's best for you, right? Like, don't overanalyze, don't think too hard, right? Just stay in your zone. Stay in the strategy, stay in the prep, right? And it's just handling those emotions that go along with it, because there is some of that pops up, especially during the draft, right? Like I want to make a splash, or I want to do this. And if something doesn't happen, there can be a tilt that goes along with it too. It's just like on the poker table where it's like, oh yeah, this hand didn't work out. Do the best you can to find that pocket again. Because exactly. Things can go sideways fast. And I think for him, it kind of happened in that way. I think he still, like, especially in the draft, like it wasn't all bad, but it was just different than what he had planned. Yeah. And he got lost in the sauce, I think. And that definitely carried over into the initial part of the season. He definitely found a rhythm, found a groove, made a lot of good, shrewd moves throughout the season. Obviously was the victim of some bad luck, even, taking the draft that he didn't want to happen into consideration. It's hard to go 0-7. That's really unlucky. So still did a lot of really good things, finished, had that middle section that was super strong.
He was a scary team there for a second. I mean, for a second, we were talking about it on the pod. He went 0-7, and then I think he rattled off 4 straight or something. And it was like, is he going to do it?
Yeah.
Is he going to win out?
I know. No, he had that Chase Brown trade, especially. Like, he made a couple of really good moves, and he's always going to be right there as far as moves made. Yeah, I think for Kendall, it's just finding his zen, not getting too emotional, staying off tilt, even keel, not worrying about everyone else so much, just worrying about yourself, right? Like, I think knowing that you have a good reputation now, like people respect you as a player, they know how locked in, how good you are, and just be confident in that, be comfortable. Don't be trying to do things to prove it anymore because you're already there, right? And so I think that'll help a lot in this like next transitional phase. And then, being, I think, a little bit more, personable as far as like the interactions. I think that might open up the trade window, even though, he did a lot of good trades and stuff. But, if you're always calling people out, then for this thing or that thing, maybe they'll be less inclined to trade with you. So
yeah, I will say that,
I love that banter, by the way. It's fun, but I would imagine that maybe sometimes someone's less inclined to help your team out if they're getting called out in the chat.
I talked trades a few times with Ken last year. We eventually did come to a trade, Justin Jefferson trade. I don't know if he's like this with everyone, but he was keen with me of sending me like rankings just so I knew that like the players we're talking about were, better or worse than my opinion of them. And that's a little aggravating. just a little bit.
Yeah. He'll get there. He'll get there. I think, and that goes into the evolution. Yeah. The Kendall's final form is the social dynamic of it, right? Yeah. That final form of the social dynamic. And then he'll be,
honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared for him this year. We were talking about it. He learned his lesson last year. Obviously he's going to be more locked in. Daughters are going to be asleep by the time the draft starts. And I think he's in the zone. Like what you just said, he's going to stay in his lane. He's not going to worry about, Justin Jefferson, that's too cheap for him or whatever. He's going to get his guys for his price. And I think he's going to build a real solid team. And I don't think he's going to end up in the same position he was last year where he had to roll out Raheem Mostert and Tajay Spears to a combined 8 points in his running back spot because he's done the prep. He's the most prepped heading into the draft.
Yeah, no doubt. Kendall, obviously, always one to watch out for. And assuming he doesn't get his own way, you would think that he's going to have a really scary team. So we'll see. Moving on to our last guy, Mr. Griffin Hunter.
Who is, by the way, your pick to win the league this year, right?
Yeah.
And then I guess the division too, or is he going to get in on a wild card? And
I didn't even think about that because I was thinking of how we have to give these predictions.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Sorry to sidetrack you there.
No, but I wasn't thinking that he could win it as a wild card. That's interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll touch on that. Firstly, Griffin Hunter, obviously a league OG and a really historic contributor to the league in all ways, right? Someone who you want to have around is always going to be a fun presence, is always going to bring an energy or a juice that most people can't match. And it's just great to have for the group, great for the dynamic. As far as fantasy goes, I mean, he came in hot, right? He came in like he was varsity, he was playing with the JV. He wins 2 out of the first 3 titles in years 1 through 3, right? Years 1 and 3. And then goes on a very long sustained run of prominence, both in the way of playoff appearances, both in scored points, points titles in that way. Just a guy that's you would expect to be right there at the end in championship contention. Now, of late, hasn't been, let's say, as favorable to Mr. Hunter. Offensive clinic in 2018, now going on 7 years ago, that team brought him to an 11-3 record, highest points scored, worthy of a ring that season. It didn't work out, but very good team. That was the last season of the snake draft. That led us into 2019, the beginning of the auction era. And since then, Griff has not made the playoffs or broken 500. So 2019, he goes 7-7. 2020, 6-8. 2021, 6-8. 2022, 7-7. 2023 beats me out and you. Well, actually, you guys tied.
Yeah, it was technicality, I think, right?
You guys both go 5-9, eke me out at 4-10 for the last place, the inaugural last place punishment. So no matter how bad things have been, never done a last place punishment. And then 2024, 6-8 in that wonky division. So I think this has been a topic of conversation. Kendall is no stranger in bringing it up. Someone who's seen so much success leading up to the auction era. Like, how do you even put your finger on it? Right? Like, it just completely random. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. Is it just like I don't know what, just like sticking to guns with draft strategy when he maybe should explore? Like, what is it? Because he's too good of a player to be on this long of a drought.
Yeah, it's there's definitely bad luck that's been mixed in there, whether it's like shitty wins or losses on his side, injuries, things like that. I do think that maybe there's a little bit of sticking to the guns. Hunter, I don't have the data in front of me. This is just sort of like my anecdotal memory here, but
hey, he's good, man. He's good. He gets it. All right.
Trigger warning. No, I feel like it just feels like over the last couple of years, you will make a big move, but sort of when it's too late. Like there was one year where I think you shipped Austin Eckler. Last year you made a move, if I remember correctly, or maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, Henry last year. But at that point, maybe it's just like a little too late. And again, this is all like personal preference. Like Brendan will make a move after week 1. And some people don't make moves all season, but that's just sort of maybe my read a little bit. And then I don't know, is it just an auction related thing? There's something about a snake draft where the players sort of come to you a little bit. I mean, it's just who's available when it's my turn to pick. Auction can get just a little nuttier, I guess. And I also think that auction makes you stick to your guns more, because you made that choice, you spent that money, you went out and got that guy. It wasn't just like, well, that's how the list fell to me.
Yeah.
And so it can make it harder to move off of guys too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a curious situation here with Griffin. And I think a couple weeks ago in the group chat, I think he said something about like, maybe I reevaluate something as far as going and getting one of those giant guys. And I forget exactly, don't quote me on it, but there was some sort of like reflective response to something that Kendall said. But yeah, from what I see, first of all, I said it last week, I continuously say this. Griffin Hunter walks out of the draft with the team that I almost always see as a minimum top 5, if not top 3, one of my favorite drafted teams. Like consistently, even in the auction era, before the season starts, looking at guys as one of the, if not the best drafter that I see. And what I see and like I said, I don't have everything in front of me, every draft history, but seems to be a good balance between having guys and then waiting for value, but also spending somewhat in the middle. I know, like, I think a couple years ago, Bijan's rookie season, I think he spent out big on Bijan, or maybe he spent out big on Eckler. But I don't think he's typically going for those top end guys, but he managed to get quite a few solid guys, like in the, middling value ranges as far as dollar amount. And that sort of creates this like nice blend of starters that are on the upper echelons, not the highest tier, but not like middling. Right. And so I think that's been his general approach, is to not overspend, to find value, but also to get guys that are good, right? Like not wait for the sake of waiting, but just wait for that next tier that he feels confident in, that are going to bring him value, even if that means he has to spend 35, 40, 45, but, I don't know. I don't know if it's just that middle approach where it's like in between strategies has maybe hurt because like we kind of talked about, you're going to have guys that are at their ceiling, but then if you're not getting those ceiling guys, then what value do they have on the trade market? So it kind of puts them in a position to like a Michael Pittman of the world or Pickens last year, where it's like, what value do they really have? It might be worth holding on to rather than shipping for the sake of shipping. But yeah, that's just kind of how I see that predicament once the season starts, if it's not going at sort of peak value. And this is not taking like injuries and stuff into account.
Yeah. No, and we talked about this after the auction, before the season started last year, how we really liked Hunter's team. And when you put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know how the season unfolded last year, his starting lineup was really, really sick. I mean, a lot of people were high on Kyler Murray last year. He got unlucky with Cooper Kupp getting injured. He got unlucky with Brandon Ayuk, kind of just not starting well and then getting injured. Michael Pittman, a lot of people were high on him. I mean, the Kenneth Walker, Derrick Henry combo is beastly. Trey McBride, obviously, top 3 tight end last year, and he had some depth. So, it's real tough, because we talk about this when we were talking about Luke and Dom, how they've figured out how to nail that mid-tier strategy and hit on their guys. But when it doesn't hit, you kind of end up, especially if it doesn't hit like kind of across the board, which with injuries and the way things played out for Hunter last year, that's kind of what happened to him. I mean,
he was unfortunate in the sense that, he had the injuries and he had the lack of ceiling from some of those guys, which inevitably led him kind of in crisis mode to try to ship off Henry. Right. And to try to recoup some of that value that he was hoping to get from some of those guys.
Well, and at some point, that's your only play at some point, because Ayuk's out for the season. Pittman's horrible. Kupp is injured. All right. Now it's just Derrick Henry, Kenneth Walker, and Trey McBride. What do I do here? You got to try to just swing. So interesting. I mean, if you hit that mid-tier strategy, we've seen it works really well. You end up with a lot of depth. You've got a lot of options. You can make moves. But the flip side of it, no bueno, just really no bueno.
Yeah, especially with the injuries, And I think he has had that approach when it comes to like, like I said, he's locked in with the NFL. He's one of the most knowledgeable guys, not just fantasy, but I mean, actual NFL. So like identifying guys that will be like number ones for their team, but might not be on as good of an offense or just might not be valued as high as some of these others. Obviously Cooper Kupp, was going to be in a lot of people's eyes taking a backseat to Puka, but he had that ceiling potential being just a year removed from being Cooper Kupp, right? Yep. Ayuk being that number one, supposedly emerging as that number one option, but he wasn't being drafted as that sort of talent. So yeah, just a lot of Pittman sort of in the same breath. So yeah, it was just unfortunate the way it unfolded that way. I'm curious to see if there's any sort of play style change just for the sake of mixing it up, right? Like I said last week, and I continue to say there's no right or wrong way. But as far as the draft goes, is it going to be more of that blended approach as he's done and just trust the process, build out that balanced team, but not as stud heavy? Even someone like Derrick Henry, right? Like you could have had him ranked as a top 5 running back, but consensus didn't. Consensus thought he might fall off. Griffin waited and got him for a discount, right? And so, that approach is really useful when you hit on those guys. We'll see if he reaches into that upper echelons, although I do feel like it's a year where it's a little bit more blended across the board besides a couple of the heavy hitters. And then just the in-season stuff. Like we said before, last week wasn't calling out a particular strategy or trying to poo-poo anything. It was just like we said, not that Griff doesn't make trades ever, but it's generally, more reactive based on stuff hitting the fan rather than trying to get ahead of it. Then again, if you believe in your guys and there's no reason to try to get ahead of it, then I get it.
Yeah,
I totally get it. But curious to see. I mean, Griff is in those halls, those lights are flickering. I know he wants nothing more. He's probably the most motivated out of anyone to get back to the promised land. So I wonder if it'll just be more of trust in the process or maybe taking a stab at mixing it up in some way.
Time will tell. In 2 weeks.
Time will tell.
2 weeks, we'll know.
You think I'm joking, Griff, when I get you up there penciled at the top, but it's no joke, my friend.
So let's get to it. Let's get to our division rankings.
Our division rankings, our division, our 2025-2026 division preview. Predictions
sponsored by
Captain Morgan Lime Bite, which we had a monologue about. Why did we ever drink that? Just because it was in a commercial and we could say Lime Bite. Yeah, really weird.
It's so disgusting.
We spent so much money and so much of our liver cells deteriorating just because we liked a commercial and thought it was funny.
I think we were still young in our alcohol days, and that hint of lime maybe took the edge off a little bit too, made it a little bit easier to drink. But who knows? Anyways, yeah, sorry, sponsor. You're great. We love you, and we'll continue to reminisce about the good times. The division projections for me, for Kendall, Casey, Brendan, and Hunter. I'm going to go first here because do it.
You went first last year. You threw an interesting wrench into my...
Don't forget about the wild card, yeah.
Because the wild card, where someone like Griff could get the wild card and sneak in there. But I don't think that's how Griffin will win. I think if Griffin's winning, he's drafting a dynamite team, maybe making a move or two that are really impactful. He rides the juju, he executes at a high level, and he has a sustained run of excellence with that team. So that doesn't sound like a wild card team to me. So I am going to put Griffin Hunter number one to finish in this division.
Let's go, Griffin.
That was my preseason pick. I'm not going to flip-flop like you did last week with your rankings, and I'm going to stay true to it. At 2, man, this is tough. This is tough because this is such a trippy division, and I have no idea what's going to happen. But I'm going to put Kendall at number 2. I'm going to have him finish there. I think there's just too much work being put into it by Kendall to to not have a decent team, especially coming off last year. I think he's due. He's due for a good season. In 3rd place, so this is where I feel like a little bit of regression might come into play. I mean, Griffin hasn't made the playoffs in the whole auction era. Casey and Brendan have both made the playoffs at a higher rate than Kendall. So I feel like if you're taking regression into account, 3rd and 4th sort of makes sense. I'm going to put Brendan at 3 because he's just trippy and things work out. And, he's got some method to his madness.
He's a good scout.
I think Casey's the most feast or famine when it comes to how he's been building the team. And he made the playoffs last year. So if we're just going 50%, one good season, one bad season, I'm probably going to put Casey last just because if the injury bug strikes, it's hard to get out of that shadow.
All right. You heard it here first. Question for you. Just a little bonus prediction. Who is Casey's starting quarterback for the 2025 season?
Lamar Jackson.
All right. I like it. Okay. I guess it's my turn.
You're up, Buck. Let's see it.
I'll start with the good news.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Let's see who Mr. Good Cop wants to say it's his favorite. Cop.
I think Hunter's honestly one of the best fantasy football players in our league. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. Well, I've really talked myself into a hole here. No, all jokes aside, I think that Ken has the strongest foundation of all teams in this league. When you look at auction era, I think Ken has the most preparation. I think Ken has or dedicates the most amount of time and attention to our league and his team. And I think it's Ken's year and he's going to win the division and make the playoffs. I think that I can see this division being like a division where sort of as we enter the final stretch of the season, like everyone in the division has a shot at the wild card still. I feel like I can see that happening. But Ken, my pick to win the division. I think that third or second place in the division and
to Sam's earlier point, you can tell this is where the lack of preparation comes into play because we don't want to pick people down here in the rankings, and we actually do this organically. We didn't set this up beforehand.
Yeah.
We're thinking in the moment, and we're like,
what, did I say something bad?
No, we're like, this is 2 weeks now in a row where we're ranking the divisions where we clearly didn't have it ranked before we started the pod, where we're just like organically.
No, this is on the spot.
We're on the spot. And now we're like, I don't want to rank someone low because they're my friend.
Right.
So that's where the lack of preparation is obvious. Just
look,
throwing it
I
out
think
there.
everyone in the league is a really good manager. I think everyone has a shot at the title. No, with that being said, I think second place, is, I think it's going to be Hunter, and I think he's going to get that wild card and that inaugural auction era playoff berth. I'm not going to make any predictions about the end of the season because I've already made those, and I said that Luke and Dom are going to win and Graham's going to get last, unless it's Jason that gets last, depending on the week. And then I think, microphone down.
Mic down.
I think I'm with you as well. I think that Brendan is like creative enough to like work his way through the season and end up in a competitive spot towards the end somewhere. I mean, he's been 8-6 the past couple of years. And then I'm going to put Casey last, just because, like you said, it does seem to be this pattern of like really, really good underperform, really good underperform. And it's all going to come down to the draft this year, and we're all drafting in person. And I think that this is going to be the first draft in a handful of years where some people get a little loosey-goosey. I'm not saying it's going to be Casey for sure, but I think you got to take that into account when we come to the draft. And Casey's team has historically been pretty dependent on how he drafts it. So for that reason,
hey, those dad beers, they hit harder than the non-dad beers.
Yeah. Once those kids are all down and there's that collective sigh of relief and that clock ticks down and we hear the jingle and
his might get down sooner than the rest of them. Potentially. Yeah. Although, I don't know. Have you checked in recently with Casey's bedtime for Emmy?
I'm pretty sure that Emmy's going to bed around the same time as the other.
Okay.
So
he'll have the same amount of time to lubricate before the draft.
I think so. I think
we'll all be maybe one glass of Chianti deep before we get into the draft. Hey, and by the way, ranking projected finishes in a division isn't necessarily an indictment on the team.
No.
Plenty of seasons where everyone's 7-7 or better, right? It's not saying because you're last in the division means you're going to go 4-10. But
remember, we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yes, opinion-based, mouth-based video game. I really just see a really good. I see a really good season coming from Griffin and Kendall.
Yeah, I'm feeling Kendall. I just don't see, unless he just gets so unlucky, I just don't see how he has a bad team coming out of the draft.
Well, I mean, there's tons of good managers that things don't work out with players, right? You don't have to get incredibly unlucky. It's just, they don't perform at whatever their expected value is supposed to be. It happens all the time.
I'm putting my money on Ken. Of anyone in the league, of all 12 of us, 13 if you include Dom, I'm putting my money on Ken to work his roster and massage his roster as the season goes on, because he's done it. He's done it for the last 4 or 5 years. You think Kendall's going to walk out with best draft? I don't. And that's only because, historically speaking, I feel like best draft never really pans out as the season progresses.
What do you mean? I won best draft 2 years ago and I was doing the Spartan race. So that was a great athletic endeavor. It worked out great for me.
You get what I'm saying, right? Like, teams look so good week 1 and then you realize that Breece Hall sucks. Yeah. Or you realize that
Justin Jefferson doesn't have a hamstring. Travis Kelce's high ankle sprain before the season starts. Yeah, exactly. So, all right. I think that's fair. It's fair. It's going to be a fun division. I'm hoping, for the sake of the rest of us, that the chatter is early. It's often, it's a bunch of guys that like to chop it up. So I hope that continues. I don't want to see some, ultra PC quiet, let's just let everyone sit in humble pie. I want to see some
chop it up.
So it goes for all of us. We'll chop it up. I chop it up with Ben a lot, but I love Ben. It's just, we've got a little chopping it up.
There's some chop.
And thank you for giving me my week 1 bye, ladies and gentlemen. I had the most votes. Ben and I had the most votes, 9 for any of the rivals. And I really appreciate that. So does Ben. We look forward to this matchup every year. Me more than him because, generally speaking, I'm just kidding. Actually, Ben beats me a whole lot. So, but yeah, I'm excited. I'm
It's
excited.
Ben's year. Ben's going back to Wisconsin. He's going to get the juices flowing. It's Ben's year.
Ben, if it's your year, what should he do?
Ben, if you're listening, you know what time it is. Go ahead and drop us the Running Man emoji.
And seeing as you're in Wisconsin now, I know that for a fact, drop a cheese next to it.
Gotta be cheese.
Running Man and cheese, and it very well could be the year of the Ben. He's locked in. He was saying at Kendall's thing, Amelia's thing, that he's been early and often doing his rankings, his spreadsheets.
I think he's ready to rock.
All that. I mean, speaking of ready to rock, I checked out our division and the names, and freaking Evan is named Titan Reaper.
Yeah.
I just about
let's take a look at
myself.
where we're at with names right now.
Titan Reaper. So I just feel I feel like he's out for blood. It's just a quiet, you don't hear that often from him as far as like that kind of talk, but to be named Titan Reaper.
Titan Reaper.
Is he calling us Titans?
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier today. If so, thanks for the compliment. But also, I'm scared.
I'm scared. I'm way, way scared. Is there anyone that we didn't touch on at all today?
We've not mentioned Jason, really. We've not mentioned Luke and Dom, kind of.
Not a lot of
Springfield. Yep.
Quick shout out to Kendall for getting for visiting. It was great to see him. He looks great. But also for getting a lot of the gang together last week. We had Kendall had a little get together celebration of Amelia's first birthday. Crazy that she's already won, and we're able to sort of mingle and mix it up, and it was really cool to see all the kids together. So Kendall, shout out there. Trip was there with Charlie and Lily. Izzy and Luca were there. Josiah and Micah. So Emmy made it down. Kudos to Casey and Lisa for coming down. So we had all the kiddos and everyone was hanging out afterwards. And it's just so crazy to see.
It's crazy to see all these kids hanging out.
Dancing, moving around like they're actual human beings now.
It's wild. It is wild.
So crazy.
It's a trip.
Excited for the draft, everything that's going to bring. Next week, we are profiling our division. Finally, singing the Bonnie Blues.
Bonnie Blue and the Oregon Trail / singing the Bonnie Blues.
So I think it's actually going to be singing the Bonnie Blues.
I like that. Singing the Bonnie Blues.
So shout out Griff, I guess via G squared, Griffin Springfield and the punishment to Griffin Hunter and the text rebuttal, inspiring us with the Bonnie Blue name.
It's the perfect name.
And we're going to be singing the Bonnie Blues. 11 out of 12 of us will be singing the Bonnie Blues at the end of the season. Only one will be left full and
making it all the way to Oregon.
Well, that's it for today's show. Excited to profile us next week. I'll have plenty of bad mouthing to do about Sam. I'll have plenty of bad mouthing to do about myself. Hopefully you guys are liking this divisional preview series. We've got some fun segments that we're going to start busting out starting next week. Didn't have quite the time to fit it in this one, but look at your rankings. Be on the lookout for the Space Pod. Again, I'm going to mess it up. The Space
Out Podcast.
Out in Space.
Out in Space.
With Kendall Cook.
I think so.
Lock in there. If you guys aren't doing your own side research, just listen to his. He's going to provide you with a lot of good information to dominate your fantasy draft. If you want to hear more about Fred and the praying mantis, tune in next week. There'll be updates there. But until then, guys, we appreciate the listen. Vibe out. We got Beckham coming down the stairs. He's ready to hop on the mic. We'll catch you next week. 3-hour nap. Kudos to Beckham for letting us make this happen.
Let's go, B.
Shout out the rest of the kids. Take us out, Sam.
Later.
Love y'all.